Hello everyone and welcome to Hill Group's podcast episode 1, and I'm your host Andre Sakr. Today's podcast is an introduction into my dealings with anxiety and some examples of my highs and lows over the last few years. Just before I get started, I just want to say a couple of things. Firstly, this is my first ever podcast, so please bear with me. I'll do my best to make it a good one, and I'm sure I'll get better the more I do. Also, just a bit of background on Hill Group. So Hill Group started in 2019. Basically, I wanted to be able to do something and give back. I've had anxiety for years, but I'm lucky enough to get myself into a good place at the moment where, I feel like I'm really on top of my anxiety and my depression. And I thought it was a great opportunity now for me, being in the good headspace that I am, to sort of reach out to those who have it and to be able to provide myself as that sort of, that go-to person for help if they need it. Millions of dollars every year is being pumped into anxiety and depression, and the statistics continue to grow. So looking at that, it sort of prompted me to get off my backside, I suppose, and really give back and do something, because it really does mean a lot to me. Seeing the pain and the anguish in people's faces in the community, it really does upset me, and I really want to be able to put myself in a position where I can give back and help as many people as I can. So, Hill Group started off as a community focus group, running once a week, and now there's a Facebook page as well called Hill Groups, and also now these podcasts. So I'm doing my best to sort of, reach out as far and wide as I can to as many people as I can. So my podcast, it'll be honest, it'll be raw, hopefully simple to understand, yet it will be educational and hard hitting. I think I sort of break the mold a bit with my thinking with anxiety and depression. I don't really believe too much in the softly approach, not because I'm a hard man and not because I think people should suck it up. I mean, I definitely, on your side, if you've got anxiety and depression, I'm definitely 100% behind you and in your team. But I just think there's some times where, as sufferers, it's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to put our hands up and take back control of our lives and take back control of the I suppose of the help that we get and what there is out there for us to, take advantage of. We need to sort of steer the ship, so to speak, a bit more, I think, and which requires a bit more responsibility from our end, because clearly, if we just sit back and do nothing, well, the statistics show that it's getting worse and worse every year. So there needs to be a massive change in the way we deal with anxiety and depression. I think one of those big steps forward is for those who suffer from it to put their hand up and take more control of the way that we are looked after, And I know that's hard because anxiety is one of those things that doesn't really allow you to get up, go outside the house, make that phone call. You're not going to stand up and say, here I am. I get that. But we really need to look deep down within ourselves and sort of say to ourselves, well, do we want a life of anxiety or do we want our life back without anxiety? And if you want your life back and you want it without anxiety, and you don't, you don't want to have anxiety. But then at some point we need to stand up and take responsibility and take, not responsibility for the anxiety, but responsibility for the help that we get, really steer the ship, lead it, and put our front foot forward to get ourselves the help we might need, because, clearly that it seems to be a bit of a disconnect somewhere. I'll give personal examples during my podcast of my battles with anxiety. I'll also interview other sufferers, interview carers, those who look after people who have anxiety, interview professionals in their fields, psychologists and doctors, hopefully people of all walks of life, just to give you as much knowledge and understanding of what we're dealing with, and hopefully some ways in which you can help get yourself, find yourself a cure for your anxiety. And, I don't have a problem in using that word cure. I think it's very important that we use positive language. I think it's very important that we don't get ourselves stuck in this negative loop where we're just treating it as a day-by-day thing, that we give ourselves hope by taking control of our minds, by, helping us to realize that it can be cured, because there's nothing worse than sort of just banging your head up against the wall the whole time and just living day by day, thinking in the back of your head that you've got that for life, and you don't. I'm living proof, I'm living proof that you don't, and you'll hear why. I'm living proof that you can be cured and you can get better. No doubt about that. I'll put on notice all the organisations that exist to help us. I'll make them accountable for their actions by questioning them, by contacting them, by testing their knowledge and their commitment to actually finding a cure for anxiety and depression and not just a band-aid solution. I believe as long as you can control your mind, then you can eliminate your anxiety. If you have control of your mind and if you have the ability to control your perceptions on things that occur in your life, then you have the ability to control your anxiety and eliminate it. And that's what our goal should be, and that's what we should all aim for, regardless of whether you think it's a day-by-day thing and you can only manage it and, it might remain dormant for a couple of weeks and it always comes back. That's not a good headspace to be thinking. We really need to turn our lives around, and that's what I did. I failed to talk negative anymore, and that positivity that I built within myself helped me to get out the other side. I'm a really big believer in positive language, and I refuse to record myself or go on record anywhere talking negative about our chances of recovery, and I'm in full recovery. I believe the community is fed up with the growing number of people who have anxiety and the band-aid solutions that exist. I know there's a lot of good people out there doing a lot of help, doing good things, but there really needs to be more done, And I think together, those who suffer and those who don't, I think together we can create really good fundamental change in, the way we approach anxiety. And, us alone, those who suffer have a big part to play in changing the stigma surrounding anxiety. The stigma exists because of our symptoms and our response and our attitude towards the anxiety. I know it's not easy, and of course, the feelings and the symptoms and all the response to our anxiety, they're real life things. I get that 100%. I lived it. I get it. But that stigma exists because of that negativity that surrounds us and the way we deal with that anxiety. And that's why I'm really big on positive language and positive change, to change that stigma around and have it, sort of change it back in our favor, so that people aren't looking at us anymore as those who, live with this dark cloud over our heads. Yes, we have it, but we can have it and still be positive, still have a positive mindset to a good outcome for us. And the more positive we are, the more that stigma will start to slowly turn around. And that's only the first step. I'm not saying that's the solution to anxiety. No, there's quite a few steps to get yourself to a good point where you can consider yourself, cured, or at least managing it. And, but definitely one of the steps is starting to change our mindset from a negative one to a positive one, as hard as it might be. I had anxiety for several years and was suffering from anxiety attacks 2 to 3 times a week. I was in and out of hospital 2-3 times, probably a week as well. Just in and out of hospital. I was in triage almost what felt like almost every night. And I didn't. The thing is about triage was I went in there, and not always necessarily wanting to see a doctor. I went into triage really just to see the nurse and just to feel comfort in those 4 walls of the hospital. When I was in there, my anxiety started to go away because of the fact that I knew I was in a safe place. And then once that anxiety went away, then, sometimes I would just ask the lady if I can get up and leave, and I would leave without even seeing a doctor, depending on how bad it was at the time for me. But, so I was in there 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I had to get up and go to work the next day. My poor wife would sit by my side. She'll get up and go with me to the hospital. She'll never leave me alone. And, I was just fortunate enough that I had a partner, that I have a partner, and I was just fortunate enough that I had someone with me who was quite understanding of what I was going through. She'll sit there in the triage with me. So, having someone there for you is definitely a great help, of course. And I know there's some people out there who might not have that help and might not have that, a partner or someone to lean on. But, there are other ways then. And there are people out there who are willing to help you still, like myself. So, don't give up hope. There's always a way around this. Yeah, I had tightness and pain in my chest. There was a history of heart disease in my family. So, when you get tightness and pain in your chest, all you can think about is that you're going to have a heart attack. And I saw 3 or 4 cardiologists before finally convincing myself that, I wasn't having a heart attack, and the chest pain was possibly, or ended up being, anxiety related. But I had to see a lot of doctors before I could make that, form that opinion. I suffered from dizziness and faintness, which could, see me get so lightheaded that I had to sort of help myself to the ground and sit on the floor because I thought I was going to collapse. I had pins and needles tingling in my fingers and feet. Once again, the thoughts of having a heart attack crept back in, and I was off to the doctors again to get checked. I had dryness and tightness on my throat, leaving me with severe nausea. And the nausea, to be honest, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. The nausea was the worst thing out of all the symptoms. It was even, to me, it was even worse than thinking I was having a heart attack. I really hated that nausea feeling. And sometimes it lasted, 1, 2, 3 days. And I just had to sort of ride it out and just wait for it to go. It was really bad. I had increases in heart rate. My heart rate will go from, 60 beats to all of a sudden 150 beats. Just sitting there doing nothing. I can just be in front of the TV, watching television, and all of a sudden it goes up. I experienced stomach pain that, was just this awful feeling in my stomach, like something was growing inside. I had myself convinced that I had cancer. I had multiple colonoscopies and to get myself checked inside out. And, look, the thing is, for me, every test that I did, every doctor that I saw, the results kept coming back as normal. And eventually I had to trust the doctor's opinions, trust the results, and believe that I was normal. I couldn't keep seeking a third, fourth, fifth opinion from someone, because all it was doing my head in. It was just kept me in this negative loop, and this, I became a hypochondriac, and I had to strongly put my faith in those doctors and those results so I could move on from, thinking I was sick. And that's another podcast in itself, how I did that. And these were some of just the physical symptoms that I had. I haven't even touched on the things in my head. I became such a big, complete hypochondriac. I was similar to Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, just someone who had every disease. And that's how I sort of saw myself. And then in my mind, I had, my mind was running wild with so many thoughts, thoughts from when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, ruminating in my head, to thoughts from just a day or two back, and these thoughts just lingered, and they just stuck there as if they were stuck in the spin of a tornado, never settling anywhere, just spinning around. I'll revisit each thought in my mind, and no sooner had I begun to acknowledge one of those thoughts, my mind was off conjuring up other ideas and frantically throwing, other thoughts to the forefront of my mind. It was really, really crazy experience. I sort of, the way I saw myself was, an individual, someone inside a china shop, tiptoeing through, trying to be so careful in life not to break or drop anything. But my mind was like the bull, the bull in the china shop, just recklessly bucking back and forth, jumping around, knocking all the plates over, knocking everything over without a care in the world for the damage it was creating. I spent every second of every day thinking of that I'd had different illnesses, and if I wasn't thinking about that, I had myself convinced that the world was about to end. This is another crazy thought that I continually had. I always thought there was going to be some sort of catastrophic event that would take place, that, there was going to be a world war, terrorism. I just had all this stuff in my head that the world was just going to turn on itself. It was crazy. It was, for me, these thoughts would just come out of nowhere. I remember being at a birthday party once, and, I was just sitting there enjoying myself with everyone and having a couple of drinks, and, it was a beautiful night. It was, a good celebration, and we're just chatting away, and all of a sudden my throat tightened up, my mouth went dry, and my heart rate went through the roof. All this happened in a matter of seconds. I walked outside into the courtyard of the bar and took some deep breaths and kept walking around trying to calm myself. I had no idea what was happening. I was young, fit, couldn't understand what was going on. I went inside and grabbed a glass of water from the bar and went back outside to try to settle my nerves. And at that point I started to think to myself, am I having a heart attack? Heart disease ran in my family, and I was really, really starting to panic. I probably should have called the ambulance, or went straight to the hospital a lot earlier than I did. I walked around for about 30-40 minutes before I decided to go, but it was a really crazy feeling, and about 30-40 minutes in, I took the car keys out of my pocket, threw them across the table to my mate and said to him, take me to the hospital. And what happened after that night sort of changed my life forever. Sometimes I really sit here and think to myself, I wish I knew that it was just a big anxiety attack that I was having, because if I knew that, I could have probably prevented it from escalating as bad as it did, and I probably wouldn't have had years of pain and anguish following that. Because that was one of the first anxiety attacks I ever had, one of the first really big attacks, and it sort of did shape the rest of the next few years of my life. It's quite hard, I really feel for everyone out there, and you've got this anxiety, you've got this depression, and you're trying to battle all of that in your head, and you're battling the symptoms, and also at the same time, you've got to try and have some normality in your life. You still got to go to work, you still got to attend functions, be with family and friends. It wasn't an easy feat by any means. I hope so far that I've been able to paint a bit of a picture of my life and how it was at a particular point. This sort of went over several years, these symptoms. It's almost impossible to paint the complete picture for you, but, this is only my first episode, first podcast, and, I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, and, hopefully there's plenty of opportunity to touch base or expand on the points made today if I sort of haven't been clear enough, or maybe confused with one or two people out there. I must add that, as I speak, I've never been stronger in my mind. I've never been more sure of my purpose, and I've never been more open and committed to discussing and helping those with anxiety. My story does have a happy ending. It is one of hope. I spent years battling anxiety, but just as many years overcoming it. My story will be told, and hopefully you all come along for the ride, and we can all sort of get through this together, and I help a lot of people in the meantime. But I must say I am in a good space at the moment, and that's most of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, to help people also, to help people get to that space that I am at. I really believe that I've been fortunate and lucky enough to get out the other end of all this, and as a result of that, I now owe it back to the community, to help them, see the light at the end of the tunnel also. One of the biggest reasons why I started doing all this, and one of the reasons why I have this passion for fighting mental illness, is I look at the statistics, and I'm in Australia. I'm podcasting from Australia, and hello to everyone overseas if you're listening. And I'm sure these statistics that I'm about to read mirror other countries. You may be worse or maybe better than ours, I don't know, but the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare estimated in 2015 and 16 that there was $9 billion spent on combating mental health in Australia. At the same time, in 2016, the economic cost of mental health in Australia was around 60 billion. Now I'm going to be honest, I don't really care about those figures. I'm not here because of the money. I'm not here because we spent 9 billion and it's cost us 60 billion. No, that's definitely not why I'm here. Why I'm here and why I'm doing what I'm doing is I fail to understand how $9 billion hasn't even put a dent in the statistics. I fail to understand how, as a government, as a community, as a civilization, we've managed and let mental health get to the point where it's now at an economic cost of 60 billion a year. But once again, it's not about the money. It's the fact that we've somehow gotten ourselves to this point where we're in this mess. And, I just, that's what upsets me. Where did we go wrong? How did we miss the mark? We obviously missed the point somewhere, and now we're seem to be damage control, trying to put a band-aid solution on everything to get ourselves to the point where we can start to control this outbreak of anxiety and depression that seems to be out there, and that's why I'm a strong believer in the way to bring this back, and the way to bring this back in our favor is for those with anxiety and depression to really take a deep breath, take a step back for a second, have a good look at yourself, have a good look at the anxiety and depression in the community that we have, and put your hand up and come forward and try and help. Really put yourself in a positive mindset, and we need to start taking ownership of this illness, start taking ownership of that stigma, turn it all around, and have more say and control into, how that $9 billion is being spent, where that $9 billion is going to. We need to turn around and say enough's enough and fight back, so to speak, and try and take back control of this illness. We can't sit back and just wait for people to do it for us anymore. We always say to ourselves, oh, you never know what... If you don't have anxiety, you'll never know what it is. And if that's the case, then how can we expect people without anxiety? How can we expect these people to help us? We can't say to them, oh, you'll never know, and then on the other hand say, well, where's our help? How can they help us if they never know? And it's up to us to help them help us. It's up to us to, we've got these signs and symptoms, and we're struggling, and we find it hard to, get out the house or pick up the phone, but we really, really need to take control of our minds and really need to get ourselves into a positive headspace where we want to go out there and help ourselves because we want to win back our lives. And that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, this is all about, do we or don't we want to live the next 50, 60, 70 years of our lives anxiety-free, so we can be ourselves, so we can be happy with loved ones, family, friends, whatever it might be, work, wherever you find your happy space. Don't you want to be there without the anxiety and depression? And I'm sure you do. Of course, that's a rhetorical question. Of course you do. You want to be anxiety-free. But it doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come sitting back waiting for that, knock on the door or that magic solution. I know it's a bit of tough love, but I had to do it, and I did do it, and I really think it's time for us to put our hands up and say, okay, step aside. We're going to take control from here, and we're going to go, and we're going to, as a community, in conjunction with everyone else, we're going to find the help we need. And I know that the world of anxiety is a sensitive place, but it's time for everyone to learn some hard truths. I really think, it's time for as a community that we all stand up for what's ours and win back our lives. And let's not continue to walk on eggshells because we're worried about who we might offend. This oversensitivity is what keeps us in this constant negative spiral. If we do things with compassion, if we do things from the heart, if we do things with good intentions, then a bit of tough love can be good for us. I'm not saying for 1 second we should all just suck it up and get on with it and that it's easy. No, it's not. I went through the worst of the worst, just like most people. But I did realize, and I came to a realization sitting there one day that, you know what? The only real person that's going to help me is me. The only real way I'm going to get the help that I need and that I know I deserve is for me to get up and go get that. And that's what I'm suggesting. That's what I'm trying to say is that let's just get up. And it doesn't have to be individually. As a community, as a group, all of us together, get up and put stuff in place to get help. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what's that help? How do I get up and do that? And that's a lot of the stuff that I get back. I get a lot of people say to me, well, that's all well and good saying it, but how do I do it? And it's just one step at a time, okay? It's not a easy solution. It's one step at a time, but it's listening to everyone, getting together as a group, putting in the effort yourself to motivate yourself to get up and reclaim your life that you deserve and take that first step. There are several steps, but there's always that first one, the one about positivity and getting your headspace right. There's steps about seeing a psychologist. There's steps about, talking to family and friends. There's steps about meditation. There are all these sort of things you can do. And not everyone will start at the same place, but we need to start somewhere. And, through my podcast, I'll definitely try and help my best to let you know how I did it. And, hopefully that sort of resonates with some other people out there. I just think if we continue on this path of softly, then when do we break the mold and take back control? The statistics show that no matter how many billions we spend, anxiety appears to be on the rise. And, like they say, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So we have to try something dramatic. We have to try something drastic, and we have to try and take ownership ourselves in a good way. I'm here for you. I'm not going to just sit here and yell at you and say, you should be doing this, this, and this. No, I will be here by your side. I've got absolute sympathy and love and just compassion for all of you out there, for all you who suffer and for those who have people in their lives that suffer and you're caring for them. I'm 100% on your side. I'll be flying the flag for you, but I just think together, step by step, we need to go back and win our lives back. I sit here today recording this podcast, to assure you all that I'll do everything in my power to tilt the scales of anxiety and mental illness back in our favour. I'll challenge, test and question all things anxiety related to ensure we are getting the best and, more importantly, the right care we deserve. As they say in anxiety, if you don't have it, you will never really know exactly how you feel. And who better to shape our help and healing than ourselves. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. It's the first of many. Please subscribe, like, comment, share with anyone you think will benefit from it. There's other podcasts to come. They're going to be exciting. They're going to be really good to listen to. There's going to be a lot of professionals on. There's going to be a lot of personal stories being told from other sufferers, from carers. We're going to hopefully try and build a community amongst us in this podcast, where we can feel assured and we can feel relaxed and we can feel that there is hope for us all. I want to thank everyone for listening. I'm sorry, once again, it's my first podcast, so hopefully I didn't miss the mark too much and hopefully you understood what I was trying to say and my voice was clear enough for you, but I definitely will get better. I promise to get better doing these podcasts because I really, really want to do them and it means a lot to me. But please, don't mistake any of what I said for me telling you to suck it up and get off your backsides. That's definitely not what it is. All I'm trying to say is, let's regain ourselves. Let's regain strength. Let's regain power amongst ourselves. Let's regain our minds, stand up, break the shackles, and really take a positive step forward to do what we need to do to heal and to cure ourselves and to get better. Take care, everyone. If you need to seek help, please seek help. Speak to you all soon. Thank you for listening. This is a Heal Groups podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Andre Sakr. I look forward to speaking to you again. Bye for now.